If you look at male socialization, we're only allowed, in quotes, we're only allowed to express anger. Any other emotion like hurt feelings, sadness, insecurity, those are all unmanly feelings. Is it surprising that men vent anger more frequently? No, because that's all we've allowed men to be able to do.
Welcome to the Fathering Strong podcast. Each week, we have an interesting conversation with dads, fatherhood practitioners, and experts on matters of importance to men and fathers. Thanks for joining us. With today's episode, here's your Fathering Strong podcast host, Eli Williams.
Hello, listening friends, and welcome to another installment of the Fathering Strong podcast. So glad to have you with us again today. And my guest today is Harrison Crawford. Harrison and I met going on 2 years ago at a conference. I just loved meeting him and his partner, Dan Griffin, who we've had on the podcast before, and have been looking forward to talking to you, Harrison. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm really excited to talk with you as well.
Thank you so much. Most of our viewers, listeners are fathers, or those who love fathers, as well as some other fatherhood practitioners will be listening in. So we try to keep it father-focused as much as we can. And for that reason, we want to start with asking you about the father in your life. What was life like growing up in your household as a kid? We'll move on then after that to your own journey as a father. So tell us what life was like for little Harrison.
Sure. Yeah. Dad is still around for me. Grew up with him being kind of the standard provider for the household. He was the one who worked, and then my mom was primarily stay-at-home mom. So I just always remember my dad, being the primary breadwinner, and that kind of rubbed off on me in terms of my own kind of value of that as a guy and as a father. But yeah, my dad, we moved a couple times as a kid because his job in the semiconductor sort of process management industry took us from Texas to California to Germany for a couple of years. And then we moved to Arizona, where I still reside. Pretty much grew up out here in Arizona. My dad had a career change. Gosh, when I was in middle school, he decided to become a teacher. So he started teaching English in high school. And I just remember helping him kind of go through some papers and things like that as a middle schooler, looking over things. And then I had him actually as a teacher my senior year of high school.
What was that like?
I got a 89.4, and he would not round that up to an A, man. Like,
Thanks, Dad.
he was a stickler. No, it was actually great, but it would be, my friends would say, "Hey, Harrison, is there a quiz today?" And I'd say, "Dude, I don't know. Like, he's not telling me that." So yeah, it was quite the experience, but no, always around, always, coaching me in terms of like the importance of education was a big thing. Went to most, if not all, of my sporting events as a kid. Any other kind of events as far as like band performances and things like that. So definitely really ever present in my life. And then just a big support for me overall. So yeah.
Wow.
We still, connect regularly. He doesn't live in the same state as me anymore, but we're always texting and calling each other. So.
Oh man, what a great relationship with a father. Wow.
I feel very lucky,
good.
Definitely.
Yeah, no doubt. No
yeah.
doubt about it. So what was the downside to that? I mean, if there was a downside.
I think I've thought about this a lot getting into the work that I'm doing. There's always kind of good and bad with it, right? I think my dad adhered to some of the man rules that Dan Griffin kind of coined that term, but the man rules as far as limiting vulnerability that is shown to others, limiting that emotional kind of connection a little bit. And I think that's probably part generational. And again, it also kind of comes back to how he was raised. So I there, let me say this, I have, through the work I've done, recognized the importance of those things and not kind of sticking to those same rules at the same level. So I try to just be intentional about that in my own parenting, but it's just kind of recognizing that it's been interesting as I've gotten older, recognizing that my parents are human beings instead of, we like to put parents on like a pedestal a lot of
Yeah.
times. And just recognizing they're human beings too. They're just doing the best they can. And sometimes things fell short in certain areas, and other areas they were great.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like it was mostly great.
Yeah, definitely.
So years pass and you become a father.
Yeah.
So talk about how all of that came about.
Yeah, sure. So, it's funny. I met my wife, we were 21 at the time in our senior year at the University of Arizona down in Tucson, Arizona. And, we've been together ever since 2007. So we got married in 2012. So some people will say, well, that was a really long time. But you'd ask her, she would definitely agree that was a long time to wait. But shortly after we got married, she got the itch to have kids. And I think I was kind of stuck in that whole, well, that's a scary thought to me, thing that maybe it's stereotypical to think that, but there was a moment, I don't remember exactly what triggered it, but there was a moment for me when I thought like, boy, I don't think I'm ever going to hit this point where I say, I'm absolutely ready to have kids. Let's do it. So, it just kind of clicked to me, like, I'm never going to feel like I'm fully prepared. So
Yeah.
stop postponing it. Like, don't procrastinate.
What scares you the most about becoming
I,
a
you know, Gosh, what scared me the most? I think just the fact that like there's no blueprint, there's no manual. It's, you're bringing a life into this world that you will be solely responsible for, and just some of the fear that comes along with that. But yeah, I realized, I'm like, you know what, I'm never gonna feel fully prepared, so let's do it.
Yeah. And that was despite having a great father who was
Yeah,
there,
sure.
but still, having your own child,
Yeah,
that's a
absolutely.
different story. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So how many children?
So I have two. I have a son who's now 11, and then I have a daughter who's 8.
The perfect little family.
Yeah, yeah, the American dream nuclear family right now. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, very good. So between raising a son and raising a daughter, which was the most challenging for you?
Oh gosh. They both present their own challenges, for sure. I think
Yeah.
it's interesting, like, I try not to, just through the work that I'm doing, I try to avoid kind of bucketing them based on boy versus girl. Just because, again, a lot of the work that I do kind of highlights how we tend to do that, and then there are consequences, both good and bad, that come from that. I will say that through the work that I've been doing as far as like the man rules and trying to really be conscious of the messages I'm sending to men and boys, I have tried to be really intentional with my son, and just trying to change some of those messages, or let him know that those messages are not, set in stone. The standard things like don't cry, don't show emotions, don't be vulnerable. Um, I've tried to be intentional about not sending those messages to him. So I think it's been a little bit more consciousness on that front with him than with my daughter, because those things are allowed. Um, the flip side is with my daughter, I'm trying to encourage those things that girls and women are tend to be dissuaded from. So like leadership, confidence, those types of things. So it's been very different for each of them. Just trying to be aware of those different components.
So far in your fathering journey, what has brought you the most joy?
Oh gosh. Oh my gosh. There's a couple things that come to mind. I think one thing is how much my kids love each other. They have such a good relationship. They bicker and they squabble. Kids do that. Siblings do that, right? but just seeing they really are each other's best friends. And that has continued up to, again, my son's 11 and I'd still say his sister is his best friend, which is pretty cool. I had a very different relationship with my sister. She could tell you that I was pretty mean to her when I was a kid. So it's just really amazing to see that connection they built. And then again, like the times that my son will just open up and share things with myself or my wife, that kind of warms my heart too, because I think that's just evidence that we're doing some of the right things with him.
Yeah.
And just, we're a family full of love, like still hugging, still snuggling, those kinds of things. It's great.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, thanks.
So I've been reading a little bit from your website, your resume and all of that.
Yeah.
And I see that you worked in the field of mental health.
Yep.
For nearly 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then became a licensed professional counselor. So where did your passion for helping of working specifically with fathers come from?
Yeah, great question. So, I was it really came from when I met Dan. So let me say this, like I was working as a therapist in a substance use treatment program, just community mental health out here in Arizona. And that organization sent me to a conference that Dan was facilitating, a 2-day conference. And it was called Engaging Fathers More Effectively. And the program that I was working in was specifically substance use treatment for parents who had child welfare involved in their lives. So they were actually referred to us from child welfare. So my organization said, hey, you work with parents. Let's see, this is a father's conference. Let's see if you can learn something useful and bring it back. And boy, my world changed when I went to that conference, and seeing the ways in which therapy in general, treatment organizations fail men and fathers in their approach, and just kind of a lack of understanding of what makes a lot of men and fathers tick and what safety looks like for men and fathers and how it's different from others. So being able to have that kind of epiphany time at that conference and then bring it back and start really right afterwards getting into working with the parents I was working with, specifically the dads I was working with, just felt like it was serendipitous. And being able to work with them in their recovery, but also in their parenting approach, was just kind of where I was like, this is what I'm meant to do. And this is what I want to continue pursuing as my passion.
That is extremely important work. I'm grateful, and I'm sure the men that you work with are very grateful that this is the path that you've been directed to, and you're doing a wonderful job there. So you are working with men who have addictive disorders,
Yeah.
so to speak. And are those men referred to you from other mental health agencies? I mean, how does that work?
Yeah. So at the time, it was primarily just a referrals from child welfare. So there was some sort of child welfare involvement with the family, and they got concerned about substance use issues. And they would refer folks to us for an assessment, and then we'd, work with them if there was, a substance use disorder at the time. Currently now I'm working in more of like a general practice with therapy, but I am really kind of the go-to guy for working with dads for my other therapists that work here. If they have a dad that really needs treatment or therapy, they're like, Harrison, we're sending them to you. So that comes from referral sources, all over. Like it can be anybody just self-referring, or again, internally, if there's a family that's seeing another therapist, they'll send the dad my way so I can spend some time with him.
That's excellent. So you can work virtually?
Yeah, I do virtual care too. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you got a referral from me, You could do now they would actually have to have insurance. Is that how that works?
Yeah, so the challenge really comes down to where they reside, right? So I'm licensed in Arizona. Um, I'd say our licensing and organizations across the country are a little bit behind in recognizing the technology that exists and how telehealth is such a huge tool for us. A lot of states still don't allow someone licensed in Arizona to work with somebody from another state unless I were licensed in that other state. Um, that's actually changing slowly. There's something called the Counseling Compact. Um, and I know like Arizona and Minnesota are two states that have signed on to that. So if there was anybody in Minnesota, I could actually see them without having to be licensed there specifically and go through all their procedures. But that is one consideration for folks who are not in the state of Arizona is some of those challenges.
Yeah. Now, fathers and men in general tend not to seek
Sure,
help.
sure.
How do you what do you attribute that to, and how do you address it?
Yeah. One of the foundational aspects of the work that Dan Griffin and I have done is just recognizing again how the man rules have been infused into the how we raise boys and men, right? So I kind of touched on a few of them already, which are things like don't cry, don't show your emotions, don't be vulnerable, always be in control, never ask for help, right? I mean, if you even just think about those five that I just listed, those are all things that we ask of people who enter therapy to do. We ask them to show emotions. We say it's okay to cry. We want them to be vulnerable. Sometimes they have to relinquish a little control to the therapist in just terms of like releasing their story outwards. So it's recognizing that that's a big ask for a lot of men. And I think a lot of times, we're not changing that ask. We're just saying, man, I know that I'm asking you to do something that may be really hard for you, and I acknowledge that. And I'm here to meet you wherever you're at in that process. So share what you want to share at this point, and let's build that relationship and that rapport to the point where it feels less like giving up something and more like let's dig into some stuff. So I really do attribute that to the messages that we send boys and young men early on in their lives about how a lot of those traits are not desirable for them. And then it kind of harms them later in life, to be honest, because they get into relationships or they become parents and they're expected to do those things that they spent their whole early formative years being told not to do.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think it's an unfair disadvantage to some degree.
Now, since you started in this work, first of all, have you seen that the ubiquitousness, if I got the word right, of
Yeah.
the internet and social media and this addiction to cell phones? Have you seen an impact there when it comes to the issues that fathers are having,
Yeah.
either positive or negative?
I really do think it's double-sided. I think you can see a lot more positivity and community and support out there for fathers, and there are a ton of good messages that are out there. I think you also, on the flip side, see some of the loudest voices in that, and I hate to use the phrase toxic masculinity because I feel like that's been a little bit co-opted, but I mean it's a fair phrase to use. Um, so the internet has allowed an expansion of the community of fatherhood and access to more information and resources for fathers, I believe. But also, it's very easy to get sucked into that toxic piece and, the echo chamber that creates where people are not always as willing to explore alternative viewpoints. So,
A
as
lot of
with lots of
anger,
things, it's good and bad.
a lot of anger.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
the anger, I'm not going to criticize the anger. I think maybe there's other ways to focus and work with that anger that could be more helpful to all. Because one of the things that we talk about, Dan and I, is, if we want to change how, you know, the way men act, we have to change how we think about men too. So, I mean, if you look at male socialization, we're only allowed, in quotes, we're only allowed to express anger. Any other emotion like hurt feelings, sadness, insecurity, those are all unmanly feelings. So, um, is it surprising that men vent anger more frequently? No, because that's all we've allowed men to be able to do.
I have a friend who has a passion for, and I understand this passion because in my years of working with fathers, I've encountered so many of them who are really, really hurt
Yeah.
because they've either been alienated from their children by an angry mother, or the system in general is
Yeah.
working against them and making it difficult for them to have healthy engagement in their children's lives. Um, in in what you have seen, um, what are some things that can be done to come alongside dads who are suffering in that way,
Yeah.
who are really wanting to have a greater participation in their child's life while they're also facing these barriers to their
Yeah.
engagement there? What do you, how do you help a dad who's suffering in that way?
Yeah, I mean, that's tough, right? Because you're running up against systems, and
Yeah.
changing systems is obviously quite the challenge. I think really offering support and validation, because a lot of times the impression I get is, when a dad starts talking about how something feels biased against him, or, kind of rigged against him, that can get shoved to the side, or almost just like, yeah, yeah, whatever, just complaining about the
Right.
system.
That
Sure.
makes it worse.
Right. And, I really think that there's validity to those complaints. Um, I don't think the system's perfect for anybody, but I do think there are some systems that are very much, um, I don't want to say anti-dad, but it feels like it at times, where the dad is really secondary or an afterthought.
Yes.
So I think a lot of times it's just validating for the father, like, yeah, I mean, it feels like that because it might be like that. And then trying to support him in finding areas where his voice can be heard. And also, there's two more things with this. One is not letting the anger that often accompanies that feeling from the dad, um, throw you off or be interpreted as resistance, because that's one thing we see with men and dads a lot is, um, labeling them as resistant, whereas we argue resistance is a sign that they don't feel safe. So it's not that they are choosing to resist, it's that they don't have that sense of safety to really let themselves go in that sense. So, um, again, not seeing that anger and quote resistance as something negative, but also helping them find their voice and exploring with them ways that they can shirk some of those man rules that might be promoting the anger and start to express themselves, in different ways that can help them get their point across and help them get their needs met more effectively, if that makes sense.
Oh, it makes all the sense in the world. And you just prompted another 1,016 questions.
It always does, yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, really very good. I would like to, maybe at some point, and it might be better offline, talk about how maybe we can't create a
Sure,
virtual platform for fathers who are in that situation.
sure.
Just a group for them so that they
Yeah,
could have a place to express themselves, while also having someone on that call who's
Yeah.
going to provide some sound advice
Sure.
in those situations. So we'll talk about that. We're going to take a brief time out, Harrison, for an announcement. We'll be back only in about 30 seconds or so. So sit tight. This is the Fathering Strong podcast. Thanks for being with me. Harrison Crawford is my guest today, and we'll continue our conversation right after this.
A recent survey of the greatest needs of fathers determined that many of them want to learn how to be the best dads they can be. This includes seeking advice on fatherhood, parenting skills, and understanding their role in a child's life. We're happy to announce the new Fathering Strong book and suite of resources that includes a workbook, 30-day devotional and journal, and workshop materials. Written by Fathering Strong's Bruce Stapleton, this package provides everything you need for your personal growth as the spiritual leader of your home. Get more information at thefatheringstrongbook.com. Purchase the materials wherever books are sold.
Thanks for staying with us. My guest is Harrison Crawford. Harrison is a counselor, and he specializes in working with dads. He's got mental health training and is working with dads who are having particular issues related to addictive behaviors and things like that. And Harrison, I may have misstated exactly what you do. I did my best there. Sorry. You want to correct me?
No, I mean, I work with not just dads, but dads are my passion. So yeah, I mean, I'm a kind of a generalist therapist right now. But again, if folks have fathers that they come across in their work, they tend to send them to me because I love working with dads.
Yes, and I was really happy to hear that you can serve dads virtually, although, not sure. It'll depend upon which state,
Yeah,
right? It sounds, yeah,
For
very
now,
good.
for now.
Yeah. All right, awesome. Now, we were just talking about before the break about fathers who are suffering because of having difficulty and challenges and facing barriers in being in their children's lives.
Yeah,
Sometimes, I've worked with fathers who can't see their children at all,
right.
and there are reasons for that, but it doesn't help that dad to know there might be valid reasons when he's hurting.
Yeah,
He has grown up. You know how it works. Men make a lot of mistakes, and then they grow up
yep,
and they realize, oh my goodness, I have ruined things for my children. I want to try to make it right. I want to
yep,
be with them. I want to share their lives, but now there are all these things in the way.
yeah,
And sometimes it's the other parent who is the main barrier. And
sure,
then there's a system in place that tends to think of what's in the best interest of their child, not to include that father's
right.
engagement. So I'm really happy to hear that you do some work in that area. And what I'm wondering is if it might be a good idea if not necessarily you, but someone like you with your training and passion to, I'll use the word facilitate or to sort of run a virtual group for dads
Mm-hmm.
who have issues like that, who are facing those kinds of things, to have a place to meet and to talk and to ask questions and to give advice and things like that. It wouldn't be something I could take on because I don't have the training. I have the
Sure,
passion, but I don't have the training,
sure.
personally to moderate a group like that. But you do, or someone with your training does. And if we could provide the platform,
I see
um,
where you're going with this.
see where I'm going with this?
Yeah, I do.
This
Yeah,
is not a setup. This was not in my mind when I asked you to come on, but it
yeah.
just makes a lot of sense to me. What do you think?
No, I agree. I mean, I think it's hard, right? And we were talking about the internet and social media before, like the amount of information that's available to us right now is immense. I mean, you could almost argue all the information in the world is available to us. So being able to find accurate helpful information in a digestible way can be daunting. So I think having something like that, where dads know they could go, and you can make it look a lot of different ways, but they could go and offer their, support for one another, have access to people who kind of know navigating systems. I think there's value to that. I do know, and I hope I'm not misquoting them on this, but I think it's Children and Family Futures does a community of practice meeting once a month for fatherhood. And I cannot recall if that is just for providers or like folks who work with fathers, but they're a large national organization and they do a lot of work with families and a lot of child welfare related stuff. So I wonder if that might even be something that partially exists through them. But I think the idea is great. Like, one thing that I have seen through my work with dads, especially running groups and like our Amazing Dads curriculum that Dan and I wrote.
I want to talk about that
Yeah,
too.
yeah,
So,
okay.
but go ahead.
I won't jump the shark on that one, but as far as like running groups with men and dads is so powerful because that's not something that they're used to, really having like supports and really like not just superficial, let's go, talk about sports and girls and all that stuff, right? But like supports in the challenges that men and fathers are experiencing.
Exactly.
It seems so rare. So any opportunity to get dads, since we're talking about fathers right now, to get dads together in an environment where they can support one another is just so powerful. And to your point, like having folks there who can also support with just some knowledge of systems that
Right.
they're navigating, and things like that would be, I cannot imagine anything more powerful.
Well, excellent. I want to continue that conversation offline because you may be aware of our Fathering Strong mobile app.
Yeah.
That's what I was promoting there when we
Yeah,
were at that conference, and that is one way I think it could be used to great benefit.
I agree.
To So let's talk about Amazing Dads. What is it? And just tell us the story of Amazing Dads.
Sure, sure. It's I hesitate to say my baby because I have 2 babies, but it's my 3rd baby, passion project. Again, through my work with Dan and taking a lot of the foundational pieces that he has developed over his decades of working with men and recognizing that, um, some of the fatherhood work and curricula out there, um, just have some gaps. There's some really excellent curricula that are available for dads to really help them grow. But Dan and I really feel that Amazing Dads fills in some of those gaps when it comes to the importance that we place on awareness and recognition of how boys and men are socialized early on and how that thread continues throughout their lifespan and into their own parenting when they become parents. So that's one real key component that we tie. So Amazing Dads is a group curriculum. It can be facilitated by therapists. The person who's facilitating does not have to be a licensed therapist. We try to broaden it, and it's not group therapy per se. It's really more like psychoeducational. But we cover topics from everything from the man rules to trauma to addiction to disciplining to healthy relationships. So we tried to identify the most important aspects of being a father and have sessions dedicated to them. And again, with the tie-in being, how were you raised to think about these things?
Mhm.
Is that messaging that you got helpful or harmful to the father you want to be? And letting them decide. Another gap that we believe we did an excellent job in filling is we were very intentional about how we organize the curriculum to be trauma informed, not just as a buzzword, but truly throughout. So we have a ton of grounding relaxation work that we do in each session with the dads. We have very intentional structure. The meetings begin the same way every time and they end in very similar ways every time. So there's sort of like that sense of creating a safe container for the dads when they're participating in the group, and then they can return to their lives outside not being triggered or keyed up. So that's another area that we're really proud of the curriculum for. So again, it's a passion project. COVID kind of got in the way a little bit, but it took us years to put together and really fine tune it to where we're happy with it. And it just came out last year when I met you. It had come out the week that we were at the conference together. So it's been about a year and a half now, and we're really, really happy with it.
Good. And so where do you get the dads who participate in your program?
So it's really, again, anybody can facilitate this group. The simplest probably approach would be for an organization that already exists to add it to their sort of like group offerings that they do, right? So I actually just started with a new group counseling, group psychiatry practice here in Arizona, and I plan on launching that group once I kind of get the logistical pieces up and running. And really, it's just, how do you market to dads and therapeutic communities, schools, there's lots of churches, there's lots of different ways that you could market it to encourage dads to be aware of it. And then if they can come in, I think the curriculum speaks for itself once dads begin participating in it.
Can it be presented virtually?
We haven't set up any sort of platform for that, but there's nothing that would prevent it from being done virtually. It would take some creativity on the part of the facilitator, because we do have some group activities that are in the actual curriculum that tend to be physical related, but it would absolutely be possible.
Well, it sounds incredible.
Thank you.
I'm looking forward to getting a copy of that, and kind of, and if you have one that you can send me, that would be amazing.
Sure.
Otherwise, I would love to take a look at that and look at the possibilities of maybe we couldn't work with you on offering that through our Fathering Strong platform. But then that's another conversation. So tell me how you met Dan. Dan Griffin, by the way, we've had on Fathering Strong. It's been several months now, I think, when he was on. Just a fascinating guy. Loved hearing his story. How did the two of you connect?
Yeah, really. So I'm going to return to it was 2016, and I was kind of on a whim encouraged to go to a conference that he was putting on.
Oh, that's right. You told me about that. Yes,
in Berkeley, California. So I was in Arizona, and my organization at the time, I think, spent probably 3 times the money to send me there as the actual conference cost. So I was pretty grateful for that. But it was a 2-day conference. And again, it was really my epiphany moment in terms of, boy, I wish I had learned any of this information in graduate school or in my training as a therapist. So after I went and, connected with Dan there, I reached out to him shortly after that conference and said, I need to figure out a way to get you to Arizona to come present to my organization. Taros Help was the organization I was working for. And I connected with my supervisor there and leadership, and they found money in the budget to have Dan come out and do a full day training for the whole organization. It was amazing. He and I stayed in touch after that, and I had some opportunities to do some local presentations on the man rules and some of the work that he's kind of done on his behalf. And just through those opportunities, he and I, realized our passions and values aligned. And that's when he was like, there's this big need for fathers. Let's fill that gap. And then, kind of the rest is history. And we've been working together ever since. And, we're no longer colleagues. We're actually just friends, I see him as a mentor, but he's a really good friend at this point.
You guys are like 2 peas in a pod. You really are. I can see how you would work together so well. So how about Upstream Work? What do you recommend for a practitioner who may work with younger men, teenagers and others who are of childbearing age?
Sure.
And perhaps did not have the kind of upbringing by a father that provided for them a good model for being a dad, preparing them for being a dad. Is there anyone doing that work, or do you touch on that at all in your work?
Um, again, I think a lot of it comes down to expanding our under well, what would I say? Expanding our beliefs about men and fathers beyond just the stereotypes. Um, so when it comes to working with adolescents and like teenagers or young men, I am hopeful in some sense because the work that I have done, I did a presentation a few years ago to a group of high school kids, and it was interesting to see a little bit of the generational differences between their kind of responses and feelings about the man rules compared to some of the groups I had been doing with older dads and men. So again, I think there are generational changes that are happening, and there's a little bit more acceptance of, um, you know, not adhering to the man rules as strongly as some folks used to, but there's plenty of that still around. So I think just again, just familiarizing themselves with these concepts of, childhood trauma, especially gender responsive approaches when it comes to, and I also want to take a step back and say, in no part of what we do are we saying men are more important than women, dads are more important than moms. It's
Right.
really just trying to bring it back to a level playing field of like
Sure.
both are important. And we
Right.
really need to ensure that we're working with both. And when I say gender responsive, I mean men and women have different needs generally when it comes to the work that we do with them. So
Sure.
recognizing their individuation there and kind of meeting their needs differently. So again, I just want to highlight that too. There's no sense of like we need to take away from what women have
Right.
to give it to dads. It's really more, let's recognize both are just critically important, especially in the lives of their children.
Absolutely. Yep. 100%.
Yeah.
We are running out of time because we know your time is limited, and we don't want to keep you beyond the availability that you have here. We're going to take our final time out. And when we come back, Harrison, I'd like for you to dream a little bit, talk
Okay.
about what the future looks like in this area of work. And we'll be right back with that. This is Eli Williams, Fathering Strong podcast, and my guest is Harrison Crawford. Stay with us.
Fathering Strong informs, engages, and empowers dads to be their best as fathers. Visit our website, fatheringstrong.com, for a wealth of resources, including informative videos, articles, books, devotionals, courses, research, and more. The Fathering Strong mobile app is a platform that empowers dads to connect with each other for mutual encouragement and support. Download it for free at fatheringstrong.com. And now, back to our conversation on the Fathering Strong podcast.
Thanks for staying with us. The Fathering Strong podcast is rounding third and headed for home. Harrison Crawford is my guest today. And Harrison, it's been a fascinating conversation. I've learned a lot from you, and hopefully our audience has as well. Now, as you move forward in this work that you're doing, what is your hope? What is your dream for, let's say, 5-10 years from now? What do you hope that you will have accomplished through your work with fathers in particular?
Yeah. I mean, I would love to see amazing dads continue to develop. I think obviously, as soon as we publish something, we go, there's ways I can improve this. So I'd love to see maybe a second edition of Amazing Dad's curriculum down the road, but really like getting that out there to folks who work with men and dads, getting that curriculum out, because again, I'm biased because I helped co-author it, but I think it just offers such a different perspective on fatherhood. And I think that there can be so much growth in the area of dads really understanding themselves and and identifying what the best version of themselves looks like as a dad, and being there for their kids in that way. And stopping the cycles that we see of trauma and addiction and all those challenging experiences that fathers experience when they're young, they grow up to be dads and unintentionally continue that cycle with their own children. We've got the curriculum. We also worked with a former colleague of mine who helped us create the Amazing Moms curriculum too. And that has just been published in September of this year. So really just finding ways to help men and women at this point. But my passion is going to be with the dads, throwing off the burdens, throwing off the shackles, the things holding us back from becoming the best dads we can be for our children and raising the next generation that will continue to move that forward. And offering trainings to folks that are interested in the Amazing Dads curriculum to be able to really help them be the best facilitators of that curriculum they can do, or that they can be, And again, just promoting a better understanding of men, trauma, fathers, how that shows up, and how to best approach people with those challenges.
Harrison Crawford, ladies and gentlemen, he is the director of father initiatives with Griffin Recovery Enterprises. How might someone get a hold of you if they've got questions or want to learn more?
Yeah, absolutely. The best way is via email, and it's pretty simple. It's harrison@griffinrecoveryenterprises.com. I say simple, but it's long. But so yeah, that's the email's the best way.
Excellent. Well, we'll make sure we include that in our program description. Looking forward to meeting with you again. There are a lot of conversations because I've got a lot of questions with you. So don't be surprised if I reach out to you. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I love having these conversations, and that anything that moves things forward and helping improve the lives for dads and their kids. I'm here for it.
Thank you for your work. Join us again for the next installment of the Fathering Strong podcast. Goodbye now.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Fathering Strong podcast. We hope you enjoyed it, were inspired, challenged, and encouraged. By subscribing, you won't miss an episode as you'll receive notifications of each new posting. Go to the Fathering Strong YouTube channel to subscribe. For an informative weekly read, sign up for the Fathering Strong blog posts. Find them at urbanlight.org. Fathering Strong is powered by Urban Light Ministries, a nonprofit Christian organization that has been serving families for nearly 30 years. Charitable gifts by people like you enable us to offer resources free of charge. Go to www.urbanlight.org to give. Thank you. Join us for the next installment of the Fathering Strong podcast.